All right, K-State has said enough is enough. Jerome Tang fired as K-State's head basketball coach for cause. And that's where it gets interesting. How ugly will this get? We have statements now from both sides. Does this end in a settlement? Is K-State off the hook for $18.7 million? I will let you know by the end of this video. And we'll talk about who K-State may target next, okay? Some names I think that you should know already early on in the game here. Plus, man, BYU, the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad week, man. I feel for you guys. Brutal news with Richie Saunders, obviously piggybacking on what happened with Parker Kingston. I do want to talk some about that, especially the Richie Saunders thing, man. So tough. Welcome into the Open for Business Big 12 podcast. I am your host, John Kurtz. This is where the Big 12 just means more. Please do like and subscribe as you file in tonight. Appreciate everybody that does that. Helping me out. We're already barreling toward 31,000 subscribers, trying to hit that 35K mark. All right. It would be great if you guys could subscribe. So many people that watch do not. Also, make sure you're signed up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It's ofbnews.com. To get signed up there, ofbnews.com. Twice a week to your inbox totally for free. We're almost at 6,000 Big 12 fans who read Open for Business. I know this is going to be a popular chat here tonight. Everybody seems very interested in this one. And what's interesting here is we're going to get some live reaction because Gene Taylor's press conference starts at 8:30. That is K-State's athletic director. He is going to field questions from the media right away, wasting zero time on this deal. So we'll see. Particularly, I'm just interested in what his answers are going to be like in terms of the case that K-State is going to try and build for cause, because we do know now, like that is absolutely a part of this. This is something I have heard plenty of behind the scenes, but it's now out there. Pete Thamel, the Manhattan Mercury, and others have reported that. So anyway, without further ado, by the way, John Kurtz-4 on Venmo, if you're not watching live and you want to drop in a question or comment, or those of you, many of you who are already here in the chat, you can click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit a super chat tonight and guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show. Appreciate those of you who can. Just like and subscribe if you can't. That's all good. So K-State has said enough is enough. Jerome Tang is fired. He is fired for cause. So will K-State actually have to pay $18.7 million? It actually doesn't seem like it. And I'll explain to you why and who the Wildcats may wind up targeting next. Okay. So what's funny about all of this is if you paid attention to the games that happened this weekend, K-State actually played a lot better against Houston than they did against Cincinnati. They continues this recent trend. You know, the end of the Jerome Tang era will be marked by horrific home performances and actually decent performances on the road. They just couldn't get over the hump and win. K-State was up 15-6 early on Houston. And well, look, the offense just wasn't there. I mean, Houston swarmed K-State, swallowed them up for a while and got them down by double digits. I mean, K-State had it it was a 10-point game with like 5 minutes left. Like, it actually was not a crazy blowout like you would expect. K-State covered with ease down at Houston. All right. So whatever Jerome Tang said after the Cincinnati game, I guess you can make the case, must have worked. Maybe he should have been challenging the ability of the players to actually wear the uniforms this entire season, because they seem to respond better to that and 6 a.m. workouts and running stairs at 6 a.m. than they did whatever was happening before, because they did fight. I will tip of the cap to the players, certainly, for playing much, much harder against Houston. But speaking of comments that Jerome Tang made, not just the ones after the Cincinnati game, there were more comments after this game. And this is where I think we start to tie into the case that K-State may be making against Jerome Tang here for firing for cause. Okay, so after the game, Jerome Tang brings up Abdi Bashir, who's injured right now, not even playing, and Nate Johnson. He brings them up to the podium and says they were assistant coaches and points out that they led the scout. Like the players did the scouting this time around against Houston. And you're kind of like, wait, hold up. So the response from losing by 29 at home, one of the 7 worst home losses in Bramlage Coliseum history, to a bad Cincinnati team, was you didn't do any coaching. You told the players to do the coaching for them. yeah, that's what happened in the post-game press conference. There were other things. Tang took the names off the back of the jerseys. It's a little high schooly, but that's a tactic. And again, they seem to play harder, but very weird. Very weird that it's, oh, hey, by the way, the players self-scouted this one. We didn't do it this time. So now you come to the firing, right? K-State fires. It's been reported now multiple places as with cause. I mean, look, I can confirm for you that it's definitely with cause. That's the road that they are going down. I think the biggest thing to pay attention to is what the Manhattan Mercury first pointed out, and now what has been pointed out by Pete Thamel of ESPN. And that is there is a clause in Jerome Tang's contract that says that the coach must be, quote, conducting themselves at all times in a manner consistent with the position of head coach, an instructor of student athletes, and an ambassador and representative of K-State athletics and the university. It also states that Tang, quote, shall not engage in any behavior, actions, or activities that subject coach, K-State athletics, or the university to public disrepute, embarrassment, ridicule, and scandal. Okay, well, the title of the video that I did last about Jerome Tang was that K-State became a national punchline, which is what happened this past week, right? So I'm no lawyer. I'm no legal expert, but I think that is a piece of what K-State is putting together in terms of a case to fire with cause here is, yeah, we were an embarrassment for the last week. You were an embarrassment for the last week. It's not just K-State and the university. It also says that the coach can't be embarrassed nationally. And that is what happened. Like, say what you will, people like or dislike the comments, whether they worked or didn't work. I think the language in these contracts is typically written in a way like this so that it gets pretty muddy. And you're like, well, that actually seems vague enough that could fit under it. You made these wild comments about the players, throwing them under the bus, and all of a sudden you're being talked about by Wilbon and Kornheiser on PTI, and the university's getting drugged through the mud by every college basketball and just sports like ESPN, Fox, whatever, every account that's out there on the Twitter sphere and on the internet, right? So I think there's certainly an argument there for like, yeah, that was some conduct that made things embarrassing. Now, on the other side, I'm sure there's a legal argument against that. Like, hey, that's ridiculous. This happens all the time to coaches where they get talked about on PTI, whatever. And now you can see how it's into like a mudslinging thing, and that's how this is going to go down. Like, both sides are going to be very dug in their corners. And we already have public statements from both. This is what I think is interesting and why I think it's smart. Gene Taylor is literally doing it as you're watching the live show right now anyway, a press conference as we speak. There was an email put out by K-State about an hour ago where Gene Taylor released this statement. Quote, "This was a decision that was made in the best interest of our university and men's basketball program. Recent public comments and conduct, in addition to the program's overall direction, have not aligned with K-State's standards for supporting student athletes and representing the university. We wish Coach Tang and his family all the best moving forward." So you can see there, K-State's already positioning it. They're already teeing it up. Recent public comments and conduct, in addition to the program's overall direction, have not aligned with K-State's standards for supporting student athletes and representing the university. But as you might imagine, there's $18.67 million technically on the line here. Jerome Tang is not going quietly into the night either. Here's what he said to Pete Thamel of ESPN in a statement. Quote, "I am deeply disappointed with the university's decision and strongly disagree with the characterization of my termination. I have always acted with integrity and faithfully fulfilled my responsibilities as head coach." The rest of it, just typical stuff you would see in a statement. But I strongly disagree with the characterization of my termination. So he's going to fight it. So look, here's where you're at on this. This seems to me like a pretty cut and dry, we're going to be headed for a settlement. And so to answer the question from the beginning of the video, will K-State be paying $18.67 million? No, I do not believe K-State is going to be paying $18.67 million. Will K-State still be paying a significant amount of money to have Jerome Tang go away as the head basketball coach? Yes, I do think K-State will still be paying a significant amount of money. I think you would have to hope, if you're K-State, that you get this below $10 million. I think that's got to be the hope. just no legal knowledge or anything here, but I've kind of circled like I think you would hope you can get it down in the $9 million range if you're K-State here. I say that once again, telling you that I am not a lawyer. I have a communications degree from Kansas State University. Okay, I have no law degree. There's no law school at K-State. I think you're headed for a settlement. You see this a lot where coach has a big buyout, something a little dicey happens. They try and fire for cause. It's basically just to pull it into a big he said, she said battle. It gets muddy. No one wants to pay lawyer fees for a super long period of time. No one wants anything to go to discovery. And so then you wind up with a settlement. That would be my guess as to what is going to happen here. And if you're K-State, by the way, you might as well. I mean, you might as well try that. I don't really see the downside in doing this right now, especially when, like, hey, the reason that this came to a head so quickly is because there were legitimately embarrassing headlines written about the school over the last week. And that's why, to me, I framed it up as this has gone from will Jerome Tang make it to next season to will Jerome Tang make it to the end of the season? Because it just felt, guys, after that game, Cincinnati Wednesday, and the comments, it felt to me like, I don't know how you can do this. There were like AI pictures put together from students trying to like bag out the Bram on Tuesday when they play Baylor, just get a bunch of the paper bags out there. Every time Jerome Tang's behind a mic now, I'm like a little worried about what he's going to say and what the press conference is going to turn into. I don't think anybody wanted that situation out there at all. Okay. Here are a couple of details, by the way. Shout out to my guy, Derek Young, who made it over to the press conference at Veneer. Derek Young says Gene Taylor said he made a final decision to make a coaching change yesterday and spoke to the president about that. Gene Taylor points out that Kansas State head coach Jerome Tang was fired for cause, mentioned the embarrassment portion of his contract. So nothing crazy or different really than what I've already relayed to you, but just some reiteration there that K-State is going after the embarrassment part of the contract. That's the language that will be at issue here. Gene Taylor said K-State will prioritize head coaching experience in its search and that Matthew Driscoll will be the interim head coach. None of that surprising. I think you didn't need any sort of inside information to realize that was going to be the case for both of those. Matthew Driscoll's been a head coach before. He came over from North Florida and, was on staff to sort of be like a number two, a 1A, 1B situation as head coach with Jerome Tang anyway. And then when you have a guy who was not a head coach, things go south. Typically, you're going to hire a head coach. So there's your update on what's going on with Jerome Tang, K-State, and company. Please do subscribe and like the video, by the way. I would really appreciate that. And if you're wondering how the heck did K-State get here after an Elite Eight in Jerome Tang's first year, click here. That's for the people that are watching the clipped version. For those of you live, don't worry about it. I appreciate you all for being here. A couple of reminders. Please do like and subscribe. Please do subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, in order to do that. And it's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you would like to submit a question or comment that way. If you're not here live, I will get to it on the next live show. So that is always an option out there for you. And if you're here right now, you can click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat and ensure that your question or comment makes it onto the show tonight. So thank you to everybody who supports in that way. All right, so who's K-State going to hire next? Who will K-State hire to replace Jerome Tang? I've got a couple of names that I think you're definitely going to need to watch out for. And I've got one thing I know for sure about the guy who is going to be hired next. All right, so again, quick refresher, if you are just joining or if you are watching the clipped version here, Jerome Tang fired today by K-State. The buyout is $18.67 million, but K-State is firing for cause. They're going to try and build a case for that. Jerome Tang has released a statement saying that he vehemently disagrees with that and is going to fight it. So now you're going to have a battle here over how much money is actually going to be paid out to Jerome Tang. Now, I think it's going to wind up in a settlement. I think the hope, if you're K-State, would be to get that under $10 million. And I think K-State has people committed to paying whatever a more reasonable amount is going to be here to make this happen. Now everybody will start to turn to, okay, well then who's K-State going to target next? What do you do? And I know K-State fans, this is me talking to the K-State fans out there in the audience, okay? K-State fans, I know you're going to say Brad Underwood. I know it. I get it. Another one of those ones that got away, a K-State alum. John Curry had a chance to hire him back in 2012 when Frank Martin left. Didn't hire him then. People wanted... I think Gene Taylor at one point to fire Bruce Weber and hire Brad Underwood in the Stephen F. Austin era. I believe that's when he was at Stephen F. Austin. K-State's had a couple shots. They have not hired him. When Jerome Tang was hired, there was a little bit of smoke that Brad Underwood was interested, and I do believe that was communicated through the back channels, but I think it was all basically to get some more leverage at Illinois, make his situation better. It was a bit of a tease. So don't do that to yourself. I will just say that, K-State fans, first and foremost, who are watching this, don't do that to yourself here. But plus, on top of all of that, Brad Underwood is well compensated at Illinois, and you're going to have to pay a lot of money. It's not going to be $18.67 million, I don't think, to Jerome Tang, but you're going to have to pay a lot of money to then pay whatever it would be to hire Brad Underwood. I do not think that money is going to be there, even if he really wanted to come. So I'm telling you, K-State fans, that is fair warning to you. There are guys that I think you could get excited about and you should start paying attention to. It's not going to be Brad Underwood. I would also say it's not, I've seen people say, well, Tyler Underwood, his son, is an assistant in Illinois and has been for 3 years. Guys, Gene Taylor is telling you in that press conference, I just read the clip from Derek Young, who's there. They want to target somebody with head coaching experience. That is the thing that I would tell you for sure. I would virtually guarantee that K-State will hire somebody that has been a head coach before. They're not going to go get an assistant as green as Tyler Underwood, or even like I've seen people mention Shane Southwell. Dude, Shane Southwell is one of my favorite former K-State players, a great guy, and was really good as an assistant coach here. I still think you're going to get somebody who's been a head coach before, and last time was taking the chance on long-time successful assistant. I don't think you're going to see that happen again here. So just some names to clear out of the way early on, initially in all of this, okay? Now, as far as what is going to happen here, remember, thinking about traits and the head coach and all this stuff, a lot of times you go the total opposite, and that obviously goes for hiring someone that's been a head coach before versus someone that's not. But even maybe if it's personality, style, it might be a totally different, like, usually you hire an offensive guy, the next coach is going to be a defensive guy, right? Everything tends to swing that way. That's just sort of the natural ebb and flow. Here are some names that I think will be in the mix. And a lot of these, I'm giving you 3 names here. These are 3 names that I think are just going to be like really popular names in the cycle in general. I also do think K-State will be particularly interested in them. I have no idea. I will tell you straight up. I can verify, I think there's some interest on the K-State side here. Whether or not it's realistic for K-State to nab one of these guys, that I don't have as good a feel for, because college basketball, it's so much harder than in college football to stay abreast of what's going on across the country, have a good pulse for that. I truly do not know, like, what other jobs are going to come open, how much interest to expect in each of these 3. I know that one of these I'm going to give you, I'm sure will have a lot of national interest, because I was keenly aware of his name before all this came up. And for that to be the case with a mid-major college basketball coach, you got to be someone that's going to be pretty popular. So I don't know how realistic these names are, but I do think there will be interest on K-State's side, and they will be names that come up for a lot of jobs this cycle. One of those is going to be Josh Schertz, who is the St. Louis head coach. And this is the one where I'm saying, I know there's a lot of buzz about him nationally, so I would guess this is a guy who's going to be targeted by a number of jobs. And if you're asking me, John, well, how good is the K-State job? Jeff Goodman and company at the Field of 68 did do a poll recently of coaches in the Big 12 ranking the best jobs in the league, and K-State was smack dab in the middle of the pack. So middle of the pack Big 12 job. Middle of the pack job in the best basketball conference in the country. is what you're looking at here, just for reference to get that out of the way. So Josh Shirts, I'll give you 2 other names and explain Shirts in a moment, but please do subscribe and like the video if you have not. I'm pushing toward 35K subscribers. Thank you to everybody who's helped get me over 30. But do subscribe if you watch the channel here. This is where the Big 12 just means more. Josh Shirts, NIT runner-up 2 years ago at St. Louis. He went to the NIT last year. He's had some really good teams at the mid-major level, and this year they're 21-1, 9-0. So he's become a hot name because of that. I saw a clip that was making the rounds of him recently where he was talking about how back in the day he took a bunch of notes. He got like some time alone with Bill Self's playbook, I believe it was, and was furiously scribbling a bunch of notes there, which, I mean, hey, that seems smart. I don't know, if that makes you like the most hireable guy for head coaching, but it seems like that's a pretty smart thing to start in your head coaching career. So Josh Shirts will be popular. I have no idea if that's realistic. Alan Huss. Alan Huss is the associate head coach and head coach in waiting at Creighton. And before you say, well, John, you said they were going to hire somebody with head coaching experience. So, like, why would you immediately throw him out? Well, because he had 2 really good years at High Point as the head coach the last 2 seasons, and then came back to Creighton where he was before. He is also a Creighton alum. So he's a Creighton alum who's the head coach in waiting there, had 2 really successful years at High Point. There's certainly reason to think, yeah, that's going to be a tough one to pull away there, that it would probably take like a really, really great job to pull him away. If he's an alum, he's going to be the head coach in waiting there. The Big East is a good basketball conference, obviously, even if this year isn't the best year in the world for the Big East. But I will throw in there, he played high school basketball at North Kansas City High School. So there's something. He's got a bit of a local-ish connection. But I do think that's a name that K-State would have some interest in. Another one's going to be Jared Calhoun at Utah State. Utah State made the NCAA tournament last year. They are 22-3, 13-2 this year. Jared Calhoun went to an NIT at Youngstown State. He had a pretty lengthy stint there where he kind of gradually turned that program around and had it up and running as a solid program, and now has had a lot of success at Utah State. I'd have to go look up. I did not have a chance to do this before the show. I'd have to go look up like the trajectory of coaches that have left that Utah State job once they have left it. But that is one thing that I will say gives me a bit of pause there, is like, there have been a lot of people that have won and had success at Utah State. That seems like it's been a job that has been very open to people winning at. Like, let me see, Utah State basketball year by year, because it feels like, I mean, all the way back to when I was in college and K-State was in the NCAA tournament with Jacob Pullen. They were playing him in a 5-12 game in the NCAA tournament once upon a time. I mean, yeah, you look at this, since 2018, they've made the tournament in 5 of the last 7 seasons. So you've had, Craig Smith, Ryan Odom, Danny Sprinkle, and now Jared Calhoun, guys who have all moved on to other jobs. Now, for Craig Smith, we know here, everybody who's watching this channel, at least most, I would imagine, things did not work out at Utah there. He went just 65-62 at Utah. So there's a bit of my pause. Like, how much can you take from succeeding at Utah State? Because a lot of people seem to really have. I'm sure there will be other names that come up. That we're very, very early in this process, right? I'm sure there will be other names that come up. But for now, those are some names that I feel pretty confident K-State will have interest in. Whether or not that's reciprocal, it remains to be seen. Okay. If you're wanting just more details on what's going on with Jerome Tang and his firing and whether or not K-State's going to have to pay the full $18.7 million, click here. That's for the people watching the clip. Those of you hanging out live, I appreciate you being here. We have no other updates from Derek Young yet. I just popped back into his Twitter feed to see if there was anything else to come from that Gene Taylor press conference so far. I'm going to do a quick scan of Twitter. No, just some people putting out the statements from both sides. Yeah, don't think we have anything real new from the Gene Taylor press conference as of right now. All right, let me get to some super chats. Thank you guys for being here. Let's first talk to TMGel1. TMGel1 says, sorry you guys have to go through this, John. On another note, the Arizona versus Texas Tech game was an instant classic. What an all-out war. Big 12 Hoops is great TV. It was this weekend. That was a war, dude. JT Toppin, is there anything? It's like a comment. I mean, it's incredibly reliable, but every time I watch it, I'm like, I don't know how JT Toppin's little floater, kind of skyhook / floater thing goes in like every time. It just seems like he's a walking, but you just get it to him down low. He's going to figure out some way to finesse that thing in. Really interesting post-game comment too from Tommy Lloyd saying like Grant McCaslin plays chess, whereas I play checkers. Arizona finally going through that gauntlet in the Big 12, man, and it's been tough. But Texas Tech is a tough team. I mean, what was it like? There were like 2 or 3 minutes left, and Tech was down by 7. Maybe it was like 4. I mean, but it just felt like at that point, it's like, all right, like Arizona's they're gonna hang on here. They got this. No, man, Tech is too tough for that. They are too tough for that. Toughest team wins, right? Everybody in Lubbock, boy, really talented, fun Texas Tech team to watch. Obviously, the same is true for Arizona. And hey, when you lose Koa Pete for the entire second half, that doesn't help. But I know, look, Tech has had to play without Christian Anderson in big games this year, so like injuries happen. Kansas Iowa State, I watched the entire KU Iowa State game. Like a total flip the game on its head from the one in Allen Fieldhouse. Iowa State just dominates that. Darren Peterson never really got going. You still have that whole saga going on. Bill Self's getting frustrated with people. Anyway, I don't know that you wanted like a whole soliloquy on the Big 12 weekend. Obviously, then, too, another one of the great games. Well, there were a couple of overtime games, right? BYU, Colorado, and then TCU, Oklahoma State was a crazy one down to the end. So, yeah, Big 12 Hoops is great TV. Let me give you one stat on that because I saw this earlier today. Let's see. I want to say it was, Michael Swain tweeted this, who does a great job covering Kansas. Michael Swain said games against the Big 12's top 6 teams over the next 3 weeks. So Arizona will play 4 games against the Big 12's top 6. Iowa State will play 4 games against the Big 12's top 6. Houston will play 3 games against the Big 12's top 6. BYU will play 3, Kansas 2, Texas Tech 2. That means you're going to get a lot of really good games coming down the home stretch. That's what we're talking about here. So anyway, TMGel, thank you. Thank you for your condolences. I will just say, I mean, I'm relieved at this point. I don't want to dance on the grave of Jerome Tang as the head coach at K-State. I would just say that, like, I'm relieved because this situation was getting to be like, just felt really untenable and uncomfortable for everybody involved. And I was worried about where that was going to go the rest of the year. And, is this going to bleed into the off season? And so it's a sense of relief, I would say, for me at this point with all this. Chris, man, I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for your support. I wanted to make sure that. Okay. Chris just said had not donated in a while for the best Big 12 coverage. Chris, that is very, very kind, my friend. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate you. You can be like Chris and submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. My guy, Chris Maben. All right, David, would any former case traders be involved in this job? Am I interested in this job? Am I missing something here, guys? Am I missing the joke here? Please let me know. I feel like this is an obvious idiotic joke, or it's me being an idiot, and then I'm missing an obvious joke here. So please do let me know. Please do let me know. So David, I'm sorry. Hit me up in the chat. Hit me up. Oh, David is pop back up. Oh, it was we got an autocorrect situation going on. Any former K-Staters looked at. Okay. Case traders. Autocorrect. I see what you're doing there. And or speech to text. Okay. Any former K-Staters? Well, I rattled through the list earlier that, like, I don't expect Brad Underwood. Don't let yourself buy into that. I've made that mistake once. And then I said, like some people, I've heard people bring up Shane Southwell, who's an assistant right now. Shane, did he wind up at Northwestern? I just don't think you're going to, he's at Northwestern. I don't think you're going to get anybody who's not been a head coach. I don't think they would take a chance there. outside of that, I mean, I don't know what you're looking at. I saw people joking around like, hey, Bob Huggins, Bob Huggins was there for a year. Lon Kruger's retired now. I don't think any of that is going to happen. So I do not expect it to be somebody with K-State ties. There's not an obvious like Colin Klein sitting out there like there was for football. So would not expect that, David, but appreciate it, my friend. You did not have to follow up so generously after the error there in autocorrect or whatever it was. Okay. I do want to, before we get out of here, we've got to talk about what's going on at BYU, because BYU fans, I feel for you, my friends. Wretched week, horrible week, terrible week for BYU fans. Weeks do not get much worse than what BYU fans just had this past week. Obviously, the Parker Kingston situation is terrible. He's now officially out of the university and off the team. And then Richie Saunders is out for the year. Like, not only arguably the best player on that team, but the heart and soul of the team. It tears an ACL early in the game against Colorado in front of the home crowd. His BYU career is now over. It's just backbreaking, man. So what does it mean for BYU's team? Like, what is it? We can now, I think, start to look at what does it mean for both teams? Like, how much does this affect the football team? How much does this affect the men's basketball team, as you have a bit of finality in both of these situations? The Richie Saunders thing makes me sick, man. He seems like such a great guy. I just saw an interview with him on BYU TV this past week, leading up to this game, and he had really a showcase performance against Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse a couple of weeks ago, where I still think he made himself a lot of money there. Like, he's going to have a really good professional career, right? Like, in the grand scheme of things, this is a blip on the radar for Richie Saunders, for sure, full stop. He'll play in the NBA. I think he'll have a really good career. It just is devastating in the moment to lose it like that at BYU, a place that's obviously meant a lot to him. And he has come up and just grown so much as a player. A rare story in college basketball these days, where you see a guy come in and work his way up over the course of multiple seasons to become a total star, and then go show out in front of multiple NBA GMs at Allen Fieldhouse who are watching the number 1 and number 2 picks, and you really kind of overshadow at least one of them. It's a great story with a crappy ending to this part, but he's going to be good. He's going to be good. But you just knew. I mean, I know he walked off and like waved to the crowd and gave you a little bit of hope there, but it just really felt like that didn't look good. He released a statement. He said, to end my BYU career like this is heartbreaking. I've loved every moment and every challenge that came with representing the school I love. This past 4 years have shaped who I am on and off the court. My story has never been one of ease, and while I didn't plan for this, my career is not over. I will return with more fight and more grit than ever. My goals haven't changed. Now that I believe. I mean, that's a dude that's going to make it work and make it happen. It also just seems like, it happened on the night that they're retiring Jimmer Fredette's jersey, right? This like celebratory event that now gets overshadowed a little bit, or at least just tainted a bit because of the injury. Also not fun, and just added some insult to injury, I think, for BYU fans. So I hate that for you guys. I also hate that my light has gone out. So I hate that for all of us. My apologies here, guys, but just bear with me. Really tough. What does it do to BYU's team? At this point, and I know I was the guy trying to preach patience for BYU's basketball team throughout the struggles, the losing streak, when you were hitting a really hard part of the schedule. I know Oklahoma State, maybe you could dispute me on that, but a Big 12 road game like that at a pretty proud historical program, it's a tough stretch. I think now you do have to BYU should make the tournament. I think the question to me now is is there any ceiling beyond being a round of 64 team without Richie Saunders on that team? I just don't know. I don't know that there is. And so much of it is because you've just taken too many hits. Like, so many players on this team have gone down with injuries. Dawson Baker, who was, going to be like a sixth man type of guy, 38% 3-point shooter, out for the year. Backup point guard Nate Pickens out for the year. KJ Perry, JUCO transfer that certainly would have played. You got a couple of 4-star players that were coming in that could have been in the mix. Like you've taken so many hits at this point that like it's brutal because you wonder, as fully constructed, what was the ceiling of this team, especially like AJ DeBonsa is playing some really high level basketball right now. What was the ceiling of this team? I just don't think we're going to know. And so it does feel like now, if you want to say like, is it panic time? Well, yeah, with a Richie Saunders injury, like, yes, I think fair. That's going to be a really tough thing to make up for. And some of it is not just because of how good he is and who you're missing there, but it's because of the cumulative effect of what has happened to this team now. It's just been death by 1,000 cuts. And it's not fair, but it is what it is. And everybody seems to have one of these seasons every now and then, right? I mean, it just happens to the best of everybody. So I think all of us in college basketball are sad to see that happen to Richie Saunders and what could have been a great BYU team. Now, as for the Parker Kingston situation, obviously that takes on a bit of a different tone. I mean, this story makes me sick too, for obvious reasons. But if you did miss the live stream from Thursday night when all this stuff broke out, BYU football standout Parker Kingston was arrested and jailed earlier this week on a felony rape charge. He was let out. It was like $100,000 bond. Yeah, he was released on $100,000 bond, $10,000 cash immediately paid to the court. But BYU released a statement now that has said he's no longer a student at the university, obviously not on the football team either. And BYU is saying that university administration and athletic administration, including BYU head coach Kalani Sitake, were only made aware of the investigation and allegations after Kingston's arrest this past Wednesday, February 11th. So there's another update to the story there. This sure seems like it's a different deal from what happened with Jake Retzloff last year. Retzloff was a civil suit that drug on longer before there was finality with what was going to happen to Retzloff. The honor code at BYU is in play in both of these situations, in addition to obviously the legal ramifications of what was going to happen there. But this certainly, look, there was a year-long investigation into this, almost a year. Basically, yeah, like a year-long investigation. It was last February 25 when this started. That feels like a much different deal than the civil case that came against Jake Retzloff in terms of the severity of like what Parker Kingston was probably facing here. So I'm not surprised. I guess all that to say, I am not surprised. Again, with no legal expertise, I am not surprised to see that this was the decision by BYU and that they made it this swiftly. So there's that. What it does to the football team, man, I mean, you are losing a really, really good player. This is a guy who had over 900 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns last year. Is it, I guess I would put it to you this way. If you're a BYU fan thinking about the football ramifications and the football implications of this, last year you were losing a starting quarterback. And I was reading actually an article at some point in this process. I read an article from the time that happened with Retzloff last year. And the article, Bear Bachmeier was the third quarterback mentioned. Like he was sort of an afterthought. Like, well, it probably won't be the true freshman to start. And now a year later, look at what's happened to Bear Bachmeier. So somebody can step up here. Kalani Sitake's got a great culture. Receiver theoretically would be less important than quarterback, right? So without getting too far and deep down this road, I just wouldn't completely write off somebody stepping up and becoming a Parker Kingston replacement of sorts. Is it Kyler Casper, Oregon receiver transfers coming over to BYU now? I know it was sort of thought that was going to be like a Chase Roberts replacement, and you are now. I mean, obviously, yeah, you're losing your two go-to guys at receiver from last year. It's going to be a big hole. It definitely changes some things, but you also at least have spring ball to work through this time too, whereas you did not have that last year where Bear Bachmeier, did not have that heads up and the opportunity to go through spring ball last year. So anyway, I just feel for you in closing, BYU fans. There will be better weeks than this. You've still got 2 really good programs going with 2 excellent head coaches, and you've got excellent financial support in a day and age where that really matters. So there will be better days, my friends. I will just say that. There will be better days. Okay, guys, please like and subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Thank you to all of you guys who do. I've got a couple of super chats here before I bounce out of here. Let's see, Pacific Northwest Ute. What's up, Pacific Northwest Ute? Richie Saunders got Cam Rising without Gatorade. Yeah, well, the Cam Rising injury where he ran into the Gatorade jug on the sideline. I don't mean to laugh at that, but it is like at the end of the day, you're like, man, how could your luck get much worse? Just like holding yourself up against the Gatorade jug on the Baylor sideline. Yeah. Although Cam Rising, Richie Saunders is not going to be dragging this one out for multiple years, but yes, I do see the point that you're making there for sure. Thank you, Pacific Northwest U, for being here and for your support and wit as always. Alan says, John, K-State has a history of hiring great coaches. Jack Hartman, Lon Kruger, Bob Huggins, Frank Martin, and they will again. Great job in the best conference. Wishing KU could play the rest of their games in Allen Fieldhouse. Rock Chalk Jayhawk Allen. Yeah, I can see why, Alan, man. KU's been, after all of a sudden that TCU game, TCU had Kansas down by what, like 20 in Allen Fieldhouse? And it was, I was thinking at the time, like, dude, it looks like they kind of lost the Allen Fieldhouse magic. And since then, they've just been completely dominant at home. And yeah, obviously that was a rough performance in Ames on Saturday. But thank you for the confidence there on the head coaches that K-State has hired. Part of the problem there is that you've got, look, Jack Hartman stuck around. That was good. But Lon Kruger, Final Four coach elsewhere, not at K-State. Bob Huggins, Final Four coach elsewhere, not at K-State. Frank Martin, Final Four coach elsewhere, not at K-State. Would like for one of these guys to do it at K-State. That would be nice. But thank you, Alan, sincerely. Thank you for being here and your support of the channel. Same to you, Scott. Scott Christensen. Fired for cause is a win. Go get the coach from Washburn. I don't care if he's a KU alum. He is a winner. I've heard some people bring that up. That's Brett Ballard, I believe, right? Who's a former KU player. I just don't see. He doesn't have head coaching experience, so there is that. I just don't think that you're going to see that big of a jump in terms of level. I don't think you're going to see that be the hire made by Gene Taylor here. That strikes me a bit like Kim Anderson. When Kim Anderson was hired by Mizzou after being the head coach at Central Missouri. And then when it flamed out at Missouri, he went 9-23, 10-21, 8-24. Boy, he won 28% of his games, 15% of his conference games in the SEC, and then has been at Pitt State since then. And it looks like Pitt State's program has been kind of middling there. That's an MIAA school, by the way. So I that's too risky for me, too risky for my blood, but I do respect your opinion, my friend, and I appreciate you being here. I think that's all we got. Scott, thank you. Thank you to everybody for submitting the super chats here tonight. Let's see. I was going to scan the last few comments. There was something I could. Yeah, I'm sorry for laughing. I see the don't laugh, John. I did not mean to laugh. I just laugh at the absurdity of it. I'll put it that way. The absurdity of it. Check one more time. Since this started as a Jerome Tang live stream, I'll check one more time for some Derek Young tweets. Maybe I can go pop into Kellis Robinette's feed, see if anyone else from the K-State beat. And anything, not really seeing it. Kellis Robinette says Gene Taylor will prioritize head coaching experience. That doesn't mean they'll be the only candidates, but that's certainly where we'll start. Matt Driscoll is the interim. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything else. We got the main points there. That works out. We got all the info to you. Thanks for hanging out. This is literally Open for Business after dark because I'm in the dark because my light went out. Got to replace the battery on that. Means it's been working overtime, and when you have a big breaking news story like that today, it's definitely been working overtime. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, And you can hit me up on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you have a question or comment that I did not get to here and you weren't here for the live stream. All right. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Hope you have a great start to the week. Hope you're off work tomorrow. And I will talk to you all very soon.